So, welcome to 13 Minutes Why Every Man Needs a Why. I am in the studio with my now good friend, Shahar Link. Hey, Shahar.
Hey.
You're the first guest I've ever had on the podcast who I met in a hot tub. I don't know, that's a niche. You own it.
Yeah, I can't say I've met too many people in hot tubs either, so we're on the same page.
And I just think it's such a great, origin story for our friendship because I know it's going to grow. I felt the connection from you ever since your partner sent you over to me because we were down at a place, a really awesome place called Joyful Journeys down near Crestone, Colorado. If anybody's listening, amazing little hot spot and with hot springs. And I was sitting in the hot springs, obviously with my shirt off and pretty much covered in Israeli propaganda.
That's Baruch.
Yeah, it is actually. I have all these Jewish Hebrew tattoos on me, Holocaust, and it was in response a long time ago to the haters. If they're gonna hate and wear the swastikas and whatever, I'm gonna show them we're still here. And so on my back, anyways, there's this big tattoo, and it's advertising the people. And your girlfriend Rebecca sent you over.
Yeah, Rebecca's not Jewish, and I am, and there's been a lot of education going on with that. We've been together for 2.5 years, and about a year into our relationship, we went on what we kind of horrifyingly, jokingly call the Holocaust extravaganza tour. It's a terrible. It was just like the itinerary was so long. It's like, oh my god. So we went to Budapest and Warsaw and Vilnius and Vienna and then some small towns where my family was from in Lithuania and Slovakia, and it was an unbelievable trip. And ever since then, like, she has a bit more radar for these kinds of things that she knows are meaningful to me. So that was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I have attracted, quite a few connections with these tattoos, so they serve their purpose. And in this case, I don't know if I would have met you otherwise. We were literally just seeing each other at this retreat, and then we don't live that far apart. And we're here now in Boulder, Colorado. So let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the premise of the show is that every 13 minutes in America, it's actually worse elsewhere, a man kills himself. And although I don't have data for this, I don't care. I know it to be true that a man who has a why, who knows his why, who's living his why, not only not kills himself, but is living a life of meaning and of purpose. And in our few conversations already, I've gotten to know I'm sitting across from a man who has a lot of purposes, a lot of whys. But, when I ask you, what's your why, what comes to mind?
Yeah. I think right now it changes, right? It's right now my why is my son. My son is struggling with depression, and he's living with me. He's 16 years old. And my why is most of the time to help support him, shepherd him through this incredibly challenging time for him. Had you spoken to me 3 months ago, that wouldn't have been on my radar, so these kinds of whys really, really shift. He's meeting someone today whose job it is to mentor teenage boys through uh, through this period of their lives. And I was talking to that fellow. His name is Jackson. I'm sure he wouldn't mind a little free advertising. He's here in Boulder, and was just so excited to meet him. This younger man in his 30s who has such a clear why himself, and that why also came out of his own struggles as a teenager. Um, so there are a lot of layers to that why of helping your kid, um, through such a hard time. Um, I'd say secondly, I have I sold a business that I had a tutoring business for 15 years that I sold 4 months ago, and just to the topic of the whys changing, um, that that business was a huge why for me for a long time, and then I started to sense, I mean, really for the last 3 or 4 years, the why of it started to really diminish. There's something about doing something that meets that why need, and then at some point the need might be met and it's time to move on. And this period of post sale has been really challenging. I'm acutely aware that I don't have the same kind of direction and purpose that I had when I was the leader of an organization and I had all of these tutors and I would sort of mentor them and students. Um, so I'm, besides my son, there's this transitionary sort of why period going on where I'm looking for that other why in terms of career and my role in the world as opposed to my family. Um, and that's been a stressful but also really interesting process, and bringing new kinds of tools and skills to bear on how to answer that why, or how to find the new why.
Yeah,
And that's been interesting.
that's amazing. Rarely does a man sit across from me and start with his son or his family. As chapter 2 of my book, a little shameless plug, Guy in the Glass just came out a couple weeks ago. Um, Chapter 2 is what do you do? These are all questions and pickup lines in a bar. And the guy's sitting at the bar, and he's 40 years old, and these questions are no longer trivial, right? The first one is what's your name? And it's not really about Shahar, it's about all the names, all the identities. But the second one is what do you do? And most men respond with how they make a living. But I didn't say what do you do for a living. And yet our identity is so tied up to what we do for a living, how we make money, right? What's our contribution to the world? It's not bad or good, but just to stop and think about that. And you started with your son, right? And that's
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah, I'll go further than my son. I got a divorce 2.5 years ago, and 2 months ago I moved in with my new partner, my fiance now. We blended our families, at least most of the time, and so I have my son, and she has 3 kids, and the four of us are together. The 6 of us, sorry, the 4 kids plus the 2 adults are together in the house a lot, and that's another why. We are building a new family unit, and it's a lot of energy and focus and chaos and joy,
Yeah.
and there's a huge why to that. I'm really, in that sense, it's nice that I don't have a job per se right now. I'm doing some part-time things, but because that's a huge why to focus on, and to make something new and beautiful and purposeful for the 6 of us, plus the 2 dogs and the cat that are in the house.
That's, that's a full house. I get it. And I'm about the same size house. Um, yes. And, when we're going through life, we talked about this earlier, and when we come to what the Kabbalists, the mystics call the shvira, the shattering, right? Like that's just part of the deal. The challenge becomes when we have multiple shatterings, when we have multiple curveballs, at the very least. And you just described a few. And I do want to come back to your son because that's serious. But it's sort of like one of these kind of perfect storms where hurricanes merge and it becomes something bigger than just a quote unquote normal hurricane. And my experience has been that we need a North Star, right? We need to orient ourselves to an anchor point, to something that's immovable, that's just true. And it's beautiful to hear that you've really named that as Rebecca, to navigate this chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to talk about. I mean, in terms of it's just so touching,
Mm.
and deep. you know, I never really thought I would have a relationship like that. Lately I've been listening to like John Lennon songs about. And I don't know a lot about Lennon and Yoko Ono, but I heard a clip from him of saying, "We want to get married every day. We just want to have more and more. Just keep tying the strings around us. Just the more marriages and the more strings we can tie around us, the better." And this is like a quote from him talking about his relationship with Yoko, and it was like, wow, like that is a man who is unafraid of commitment, and who I think saw sort of love as this North Star,
Yeah.
this, and I never really thought I would be able to connect with that,
Huh.
but I have now, and it's kind of amazing.
So, as you know, I teach the Enneagram, and you're a student of the Enneagram as well. And you shared with me that your sort of core type, as I would call it, is an Enneagram 7, the enthusiast, the visionary, and tremendous superpowers, right? The vision, energy, possibility. It's the quintessential entrepreneur, which means like to go, literally to go into the unknown kind of thing. But everything has a shadow, and the shadow of the 7 is going wide, not deep. Many relationships or many pursuits, not one commitment, tying this knot, grounding down, committing to the thing. And what I love, there's nothing more that I love more than a man who's a 7, who's hit the midlife crossroads, who's come to the shatterings, and who's going deep, who's committing, who's seeing that not as Viktor Frankl, my teacher, said there's two types of freedom. There's freedom from, and there's freedom towards. And 7 spend their most, at least the first half of their life, freedom from, running from. I call Peter Pan syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flying off to Neverland. But freedom towards is freedom towards my son, freedom towards Rebecca, freedom towards my profession. And I've heard a lot of that shift in you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It it has I have absolutely follow that paradigm you're talking about. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and did some things that I have an awful lot of remorse around. I think in many ways an effort to not feel constrained, and it didn't really work, to put it mildly. Um, and yeah, I think as a 7, probably most of us need to kind of learn that the hard way. I have a very dear friend who is also a 7 with the same wing. I don't, I forget what it was, but he did the test and he was like, "Oh my God, we're Enneagram twins." I'm like, no kidding. And we talk about the same sort of thing. I mean, addictive sort of um, behavioral patterns, and until it's just like, when is enough? It isn't. I've got to just at some point be good with what I have. So we've both sort of arrived there at the same time. It's been interesting.
Yeah, Peter Pan didn't fly around Neverland alone. He had the Lost Boys, right?
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
attract to us at that time in our life people who can support that, go wide, not deep. I've never worked with a man who's a 7 who hasn't first had his ass handed to him by life. Like
yep,
it's so hard to shake that guy into sort of sobriety. That's actually the term in the Enneagram language that brings a 7 to his senses. Sobriety, and maybe it's drink, but sobriety, being present,
yeah,
right here, right now, not the future.
yeah,
That resonates. I can tell.
yeah. I have. I have my own 12-step commitments.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's such a, the Enneagram just describes such a paradox because it's a powerful thing to have vision, to see the future, to see, but it's also intoxicating and it takes you out of this present moment awareness.
100%. And um, it's intoxicating. When it's done sort of compulsively or addictively, it's harmful to oneself and others. And I think it's often deadly, to be honest. I when I first sort of became, sober in the way that I need to be sober,
Mm-hmm.
I realized like how many people who die of overdoses or of, you know, things like that were probably sevens,
So true.
who just went took it too far and couldn't rein it in. So I consider myself incredibly lucky to have survived all of that, and be in a place where I feel more grounded than I've ever felt in my life. But yeah, I think I needed luck and grace and time to get there.
I don't have data on this, but that never stops me. I'm an eight, so I never hold myself accountable to facts. It feels true to me, and the truth is the Enneagram. I think the Enneagram of suicide might be Enneagram sevens, the Enthusiast, and I want to talk about that. The Enneagram ones, the perfectionists, the reformers, and Enneagram fours. That's the most obvious, the individualist, the deep rooting artist.
Mm-hmm.
But the sevens are the surprising ones, and it's the Robin Williams, right,
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
The ones, and also Jim Carrey, who didn't commit suicide, but they live with a mask on, presenting optimism and hope and fun. And hey, man, he was so happy. But it's underneath the mask is the pain and the wounded boy.
Yeah. It comes from a place, and this is something I've been exploring with my relationship with my son as he's struggling with depression and kind of emerging into adulthood. Um, it comes from a fundamentally a place of feeling very scared or uncomfortable with discomfort,
Mm.
with uncomfortable feelings. Those must be pushed away at all costs. But it's impossible. Um, and that's a really dangerous place to be. So I feel like what's happening with my kid is there's this amazing lesson, another one being handed to me about being present with extremely uncomfortable things
Yeah.
for me, and learning to have some spaciousness even around the things that are, honestly the most terrifying things that I can think of.
But what a gift or blessing to be able to recognize that. A teacher of mine once called it avoidance, a void dance, a dance around the void. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the seven danger of I'm just going to keep dancing, keep moving, keep going, keep thinking, right? And
Yeah.
if I stop, I'm going to have to face it. So I'm not going to stop. But for a man to be brought to his knees, and I can't think of anything more that to bring you to your knees than a son who's in harm's way potentially, to be able to stop and to face the void as an act of love, right? What a gift from a father to a son.
Yep. It's a really hard gift. And I don't want to minimize that pain, but it's an incredible lesson in being open to just all of what it means to be human. And you know, I I've read most of Alan Watts. I'm sure you've had your fill, And one of the things that he just comes back to over and over again is the sort of collapsing of opposites when you really look at them. That good needs bad and black needs white and open needs closed, and none of them make any sense without the other one. And I think from a 7 perspective, that's a tough one. We're just always going for the good. Screw
light,
the bad. Go
no
away
light,
from bad.
no dark.
Light, no dark. But you can't really have one without the other.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the more I don't know, abstract way that I'm understanding what this gift is about.
And the other piece of that is, Viktor Frankl called it bearing our burden as an act of love. Make me worthy of this burden, right, is what he talks about. Can I hold it? Can I hold this as an act of love? I love the word patience, comes from the Latin pati, which means suffering. Can I hold the suffering as an act of love? And as opposed to run from it, or, and 7s in a younger year would make a joke or, look past it, see the sunny side of life kind of thing. But as an act of love, can I hold the burden for you?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. That's kind of where I'm at right now, and it's excruciating and beautiful.
The word for 7, the name for 7 that is usually used, I do use it, is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But the shift for the 7 becomes when, like, the meaning of the word is en within, theos, the God from within, right? Can I find God within, not without, not out there? Does source show up in your life? Is that a concept that resonates?
It's there. It's a continuing process and struggle to some degree. I'm fairly allergic to the word God. I went to an Orthodox day school for my high school, and then I spent a year in yeshiva in Israel in an Orthodox environment. And then I got kicked out of yeshiva university after 2 months.
I knew I liked you.
I was done by the time I got there. And then, then I went to college. But that whole experience was both incredibly formative for me, but also left me with this rather bitter taste of the word God. Yeah. However, and then I did go through about a decade of militant atheism, I would say. But that began to chip away after some psychedelic experiences about 10, 15 years ago, where, these, how it is. You get these little visions or understandings or downloads or what that just seem completely not what you were looking for or expecting. And one of them very powerfully was this feeling that the vision was that love is the glue of the universe. And when it's one of these sort of psychedelic things where by glue, I mean glue. Like if love went away, all of the molecules would stop adhering. They would, the physical things that seem to keep everything together would just shatter in a billion different directions, and there would be nothing. And it was like, what does that even mean?
But I get it. I love it. It's so good.
And that never left me. When I had that thing on psychedelics, I was in my militant atheism stage. And then the next day I was like, wait, I think I have to revisit that. I don't even know. I mean, and then, that sort of aligns with what a lot of mystics and spiritual folks have said for 10,000 years, that is what love is. I started noticing that in ancient kind of literature, that these same kinds of things, that love is the glue. It doesn't make any sense in a purely sort of rational, logical way.
By definition, it's not.
Exactly. It's love. So right now, that's sort of my working definition of God.
I love it.
Just love.
Cosmic glue.
Yeah, the cosmic glue that we notice, or that It is what love is. It's the spiritual glue.
So I was reworking my business with my wife Ariella. It's called Soul Centered. That's sort of the overarching umbrella, and then we each have our own brands and stuff we do underneath it. But about 2 months ago, I'm like, we need to have a business meeting, and we're doing it with DMT, natural occurring, legal here in Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And when have a friend who's a plant medicine guide, and we did a DMT journey. I did a DMT journey. She definitely didn't do it. But that was our board meeting.
Wow.
And I wanted clarity. I mean, I had done all the diligence, the work, the spreadsheets and all that. But at the end of the day, like I don't want to answer to a spreadsheet. I want to answer to source, to one, to love, to cosmic glue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went under, and I did it in her arms. I laid back. I've never told this on air. And I just did it. I laid back, and it was love. I just kept saying, we answer to love. And her and my friend Phil were just like almost taking notes. And I was like channeling. It was all about, it was a wacky ride, but Hebrew letters. And I just kept seeing the point of connection in my third eye to source. But I came out with a very, very clear mission. And that is Ariella and I were supposed to share our love in, sort of circles outwards to the world with our children and our family and our friends and for me, my men and our community, and build around that. And it may sound like, oh, of course, maybe that makes sense, but it was a paradigm shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know that with plant medicine, it's like everything changes once you can see something that you just couldn't see before.
Yeah, there's the thing about plant medicine is that it often these phrases, love is the glue that holds the universe together, can, when you have a visceral experience of that, when you feel it in the same way that I feel touching this table in front of us, that is life changing. The thought means nothing. Thoughts are nothing. We know this from a lot of, but the touching of it's impossible to describe. And it is, I think, like sort of the gift of plant medicine is it lets you fully embody these otherwise really abstract and difficult to touch concepts, So yeah,
And it removes the mask. It strips you of you're not a seven. Seven isn't who you are. It's how you survive. And you go under, and it just strips away the mask so that there are no veils or no barriers between me and whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so then coming out, well, look, you're describing it as Rebecca for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus sounds like obviously your previous marriage, where like this, you can talk about love, you can know it theoretically, but that's not how it works. Like to know it is just to drop the mask and receive it.
Yeah, it's the biblical no. It's the it's this like real integration of knowledge and physical spiritual embodiment. It's a whole different thing.
And the fearlessness, right? You can't, light and dark, fear and love, they're mutually they hold each other in check, but they are mutually exclusive. When there's light, there's not dark, right? And when there's love, there's not fear. And so in that place of love, right, and just holding that as a source of light or a source of certainty, we set out today to kind of talk about Shahar's why. Even prior to this, we had coffee, and I don't know, man, it's just like love, and I can feel that radiating from you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm tearing up a little bit. It doesn't take much, honestly.
Good. Come on, don't diminish my work here.
You've done very well. Yeah, if someone asks me my why and I say love, it's just a little too hippie-ish for me. But yeah, yeah, the I do want my next work life also to be much more connected to, you could say source, but to 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 love. I mean, I think about it just as simply as just helping people.
Yep.
In a there are so many ways in which there's so many degrees of helping people, and I just feel like I need to go a few more layers of the onion
Mm-hmm.
deeper in that, and it's tough to find in work. Um, there's a lot of good money out there for stuff that is just questionable. It's
Transactional.
transactional, and that might be necessary. I'm not diminishing the need for us to sustain ourselves and our families, but it would, at this point, I'm lucky enough to feel like I can sacrifice some of that in order to build a kind of loving purpose around work itself.
Yes, and I think though that, going home to Rebecca, going home to your son, reconnecting with that source point of love, of light, is the refuel. I drive an electric car. You got to plug it in at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this. That's the plugging of it in. And yeah, you can only drive so far in your electric car, and the further you get, you better make sure you're not too far from the origin point of the
Mm-hmm.
filling up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where you're at right now. Like, let's go back to that constantly, and then drive out from there. I don't know if that even makes sense.
Yeah.
We're not even doing plant medicine, for the record.
um, absolutely. Yeah. It's a, that relationship, that partnership, that love is absolutely my rock. It's my anchor point, where the energy to do everything else can come from 100%.
And when I'm going through it, and I'm rebuilding restructuring my work, my business, so that it's less business and more cause. And there's lots of variables, and there's just, when I have all these variables going on, and mine aren't nearly as dramatic as yours right now. They have been, but they're not now. But I have to go back to Ariella. Ariella, she's my refueling station. And when I go back to her, it doesn't make all the storms or whatever's going on out there go away, but it just gives me that sort of replenishment to go back into the storm and navigate it with my my lighthouse.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes, as I think, it takes work, to keep that anchor point secure, and when things get really hard, it takes real effort and redirection and purposefulness. But yeah, it's absolutely necessary and worth it.
But I think as men, though, we when we are in these, I don't know, tentative or liminal times with profession as an example, because you're looking for your next thing, and you go out there and you go hunting, and you didn't come back with anything today,
Mm-hmm.
and then the
Yeah.
next day and the next day. At least my attention, but I think most men starts at home thinking about the hunt,
Yeah.
and I'm missing the very thing that can help me go out and be successful with the hunt.
Yeah.
When I'm at home, I have to, okay, this is actually, it was at George Washington. I don't know. Somebody said, if I had 5 hours to chop down a cherry tree, I'd spend 4 hours sharpening the axe, right? Like at home, love, connect, at sharpening the axe, as opposed to me using that time to worry about the hunt. And then I go out in the hunt and I'm already worried, right?
Yeah. No, I love that metaphor. I think that's really spot on. And I don't know, really speaks to sort of the primal nature of what it does feel like I'm doing on a lot of days. And then you have the hearth, so to speak. Yeah, I get a lot from my dogs on that too.
Yeah.
Well, they're such hearth creatures, you know. They're just like they know how to. Yeah, all they are interested in is connection,
And the present moment.
in the present moment, and so just thinking of my dog at that moment, and how much just like a 5 minute, connection with him in the evening, sort of, in addition to all the other sentient beings in the household. But there is something special going on there that's just sort of like, whew, okay, we're here.
But to me, that's the starting point for you right now. Like, can we just? So there's, I think I wrote about it in this book. There's an old tale about farmers in the Midwest, and during blizzards, there would be whiteouts, and there were stories of farmers who had froze like 20 feet from their house, but they couldn't find their way home, and so, they would tie a rope from the house to themselves because they had to go to the barn or whatever, and that rope, tying the rope to the hearth,
Yeah,
right? That to me is like that's the answer right now.
yeah,
Let's double down on the rope, on those things you just described, and we'll find our way out in the whiteout.
yeah, yeah. I absolutely agree, and I love the metaphor. And that's really worth keeping close.
So maybe as we start to wrap it up. I want to come back to your son because it's something that's worth putting the rest of our attention on. And I don't know, like, how does this translate back to him? Because I feel there's something here for him.
So I'm not totally sure, but one thing that comes to mind for him, it's a little tricky. He sort of goes between two houses because of the divorce, and he also has this new family that he honestly barely knows. I mean, he's been hanging out with them for over a year at this point, but it's like they have this whole thing going, that he's joining and he enjoys. But so I think that for him, the deeper kind of hearth, will be a spiritual connection, I think, in nature. And I think that's something he has connected to in the past, but is so easily lost in our culture, and teenagers and social media and grades and getting into college. And what about being enveloped and feeling the awe and the love and the majesty of the rocks and the trees and the sky, and I feel like, I don't know, when we talk about the hearth for him, that's what I have a sense of that being a really important part of it. This fellow Jackson that I mentioned, that I just came across, I don't know him well, but he also runs a rite of passage ceremony for teenage boys, and he's not the only one. Obviously, these are pretty, they're proliferating, in a which is great, because there's something about that connection to the natural world and knowing that we are a part of that is what we're made of. I don't always get so biblical, but like, I do love that Adam just means dirt. It's like the first man is just dirt man.
Dirt.
And it's a joke, but it is like, that is who we are.
So
This
good.
is what we come from. This is what we go back to. And if we lose that connection, it's easy to get lost. And so that's just something I think is a really important sort of part of the path for him and for, many teenagers.
Yeah, we've 100% lost these rituals, and then we think we have them, like the bar mitzvah, which is such a fucking joke. It is, the antithesis of an initiation. It's like you're celebrated, and we're getting ice sculptures that look like you, and having break dancers. That was my party.
We had a break dance.
But I did not feel like an initiation. So my youngest, who's just super non-traditional, he's an Enneagram 4. He didn't want a bar mitzvah. Didn't want to study for it. And I was past the point of wanting to force anything on him. So what we did was we found 13 of his, just looking at my podcast picture over there, 13 fears that he had. We identified 13 fears, and then we just checked them off one at a time. Like one of them was he was afraid because he dances, and every night I drop him off downtown. And it's kind of sketchy downtown Denver at night. Mm-hmm. And that was a fear of his. And so one of the fears was to check that off the box. So I dropped him off on one end of an alley, pretty far alley, and said, I'll pick you up on the other side. And he walked through it as a rite of passage, mm-hmm. and came out the other side. Yeah. His mother was fucking horrified afterwards, which is how you know it's a good rite of passage.
Yeah.
But I saw that was his way.
Yeah.
And it gave him something to move through. And then if you can move through that, well, maybe I can move through the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think absolutely. We had sort of a DIY bar mitzvah, and it was fine. But yeah, it's not an initiation, mm-hmm. in the sense that it probably was at one point. I think, there's so many unbelievable initiation rites of passages out there in various cultures in the world, and including in Jewish stuff. Like I remember there was a Hasidic group that used to take kids into the woods blindfolded, and like a day's walk away from everything, and then tell them to take the blindfold off in 5 hours or something, and then they would just have to figure out their way home.
Oh, I never heard about that.
And
that's
this was
awesome.
Hasidic. It's like, it's not what we think. Like, that is obviously not what they're doing now, but it was, really the idea of like, we have this intuitive knowledge that is, given to us in some way, and use it. Learn how to get in touch with it. It's like, use the force. And it's so cool. And kids don't get the opportunities to learn to trust themselves like that.
Well, partially because the adults, their parents don't do these things, right? Like, you do something, your kids will do it. One of the things I hate about American and modern Judaism, it's so cut off from the roots of, like it was like the holidays were pilgrimage holidays where you walk literally. And the walking was the religiosity, not just the going and the please turn to page 145, please rise, please sit. Fuck, kill me now.
Yeah, it was very visceral. I mean, also think about what they were doing when they got there.
Slit the neck of a animal and watch it bleed out and really take it seriously. And people are like, that's so barbaric. Really? Because you just bought meat under a cellophane wrapper and just popped it in your mouth without even realizing it was an animal.
Absolutely.
But the other thing is, I lived in Svat, Svat's up in the north, and to get ready for the high holidays, you would hear down in the wadi, in the riverbeds, midnight, Hasids walking around going, Abba, Abba, like all night long, and it's like primal.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I want to go to that synagogue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Some experiences when I was in Israel and in dancing with the Hasidic groups, and it was like absolutely altered
Ecstatic
state of
dancing.
consciousness.
Yeah.
Uh, all night, and for hours and hours and hours, and you have no sense of time. And as much as I sort of abhor a lot of what they're up to, um, they know how to do some things about in terms of connecting with these really deep places that make us human and that are really essential.
Yeah.
And I really love what Jackson, and others are doing to try to bring some of that back. I did a vision fast when I was in my 20s and did the 4-day solo and drinking nothing but water, and that was absolutely transformative for me. I wish I didn't wait until I was 27 years old to do it. These things matter.
Well, it sounds like, coming full circle with your son, like these are the lifelines that will connect him to himself, to source. And there's I don't know, maybe it's in the Talmud or something, maybe you remember from yeshiva, about the young boy who's going out in the woods to pray. And his father says, God's the same everywhere. You can go to synagogue. He's like, God's the same everywhere, but I'm not the same everywhere. I'm different in the woods, and I connect, I hear, I see, I feel. And I just think it's such a gift that you're giving to your son to be, helping him tie on these lifelines that I certainly wasn't given, but I certainly needed. I've watched my son find his own way in the space. He goes to a place here in Boulder called Ember and Ice. My good friend Trent, who's in studio, Trent owns Ember and Ice, and he goes and he does cold plunge and sauna and cold plunge and sauna. And he's an Orthodox Jew. He's a serious Jew. But he finds God in the experiences of those things.
Yeah. That's really cool. I thought of Alan Watts again, the bringing together of opposites, and something how powerful that is in finding sort of the integration between hot and cold, and how much that awakens us. That's cool.
To feel it.
Yeah.
Part of our theme today, as we wrap up now, is not just knowing something intellectually, but really embodied experience, feeling, knowing, primal, like you said, biblical knowing. And I don't know, man. I feel so much energy and possibility and excitement harnessed now coming from this beautiful man across from me. I really say it with the utmost sincerity. Like, this is a man who's got love to share, and however you express it, I don't know. To me, that's how, what, where, when, who, but your why, fucking rock solid.
Thank you. It's really good to hear that. This has been a really fun conversation. I don't get to have conversations like this every day. So,
Thank Rebecca for me for introducing us. And
absolutely.
I probably couldn't have said it in the hot tub, but I can say it now. I love you, brother. I can feel you. So thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you.